Distressing and horrifying. Those were the two words that swirled in our heads in this newsroom when we heard about the murders of 6 hostages in Gaza, brutally executed minutes before the Israeli army would have swooped in to rescue them. The killing of 6 hostages in Gaza has rocked Israel. There are never before seen scales of protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Protesters are blaming him for refusing to reach a deal with Hamas for the hostages, many of whom are already dead as we speak. As of now, there are 101 Israeli hostages still inside Gaza, and the common refrain is that Netanyahu must bend a little to reach a deal so at least they can be returned alive to their families. There is some merit in that argument perhaps, but only if Netanyahu's priority number 1 is to get back the remaining hostages alive. But the Israeli PM has made his priorities clear. He will not relent or back down versus Hamas. Now, Netanyahu insists that the goal in Gaza must be a victory so decisive that when the fighting stops, Hamas cannot pose any threat to Israel. Here's a look at what Netanyahu wants from the Gaza deal. And I'll start with the most important one at this juncture, that is the release of hostages. Of the 101 odd remaining hostages in Gaza, Netanyahu wants maximum number of living captives to be released in stage 1. It is believed that 3, maybe 4 of the 6 killed hostages would have made it out alive in the first stage of hostage release if the deal had been reached on time. Netanyahu's critics accuse him of drawing out the Gaza campaign for personal political reasons, arguing that a deal for a permanent ceasefire would not only bring home the remaining hostages but also open the door to elections that may well spell Netanyahu's removal from office. The Israeli Prime Minister has expectedly rubbished these claims, but the criticism cannot be completely discarded given Netanyahu's plunging popularity within Israel. That brings us to Netanyahu's stated priority number 1, a pledge for complete destruction of Hamas so that it does not pose any threat to Israel ever again. In that pursuit, Israel has already assassinated Hamas's political chief, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, bombed Hamas's military chief, Mohammad Daif, apart from killing thousands of civilians in the Gaza Strip. Now, word has it that Netanyahu has his eyes set on Hamas's new boss, Yahya Sinwar now. Critics believe that he is deliberately delaying the Gaza deal to get his hands on Sinwar, the key architect of October 7th. Israeli forces reportedly believe that eliminating Sinwar would deal the biggest body blow to Hamas and destabilize the organization's operations. Now let's come to Netanyahu's latest priority, which is controlling the Philadelphia corridor. Now the so-called corridor is a narrow, about 14.5 kilometers long, which approximates about 9-mile stretch of land along Gaza's southern border with Egypt. Now Israel captured the corridor in late May after it destroyed dozens of tunnels beneath that corridor. Now, IDF says that these tunnels were used to smuggle in weapons to Hamas's militant wing. They want to retain control of this corridor. Hamas obviously does not want them there and is asking for a complete Israeli withdrawal from the Strip. At a recent cabinet security meeting, even Netanyahu's hawkish defense minister lashed out at him. Yoav Gallant apparently told Netanyahu that to prioritize the Philadelphia corridor at the cost of the lives of the hostages is a moral disgrace. But Netanyahu and his top ministers remain unconvinced. They believe that only the presence of Israeli troops at the border can prevent arms, reaching Hamas. Of course, there are other sticking points to reaching the proposed Gaza deal. For instance, Israel wanting to screen the displaced Palestinians on their return to North Gaza. But perhaps those can be ironed out by the negotiating parties. For now, the biggest question is this: will Netanyahu prioritize the life of the remaining hostages over his own political endgame?